Hi everybody, and welcome back to another Look Back review. This time we're looking at a game that became a cult classic, Okami. I played this game back when I was a kid, the only reason being that I'd just traded in some games at my local game station at the time, and the box art had a dog on it. It was literally the only reason I got it. I remember taking it home, putting it in my PS2, and being blown away with the art style and the gameplay. A lot of people call this game a Zelda clone, and if we're honest, there are some similarities in the gameplay design and puzzles. But although I had an N64 when I was younger, I never had a Zelda game, so I didn't know this kind of game existed. I played around a third of the game, but then, when playing through San Andreas and getting quite annoyed during a certain Catalina mission, I kicked my PS2 and I broke it. Also, sorry Mum and Dad, as I said I broke it by accidentally walking into it during the night. Yeah, that's been eating at me for around 15 years. While I would get an Xbox 360 later and play through San Andreas to completion through backwards compatibility, I never got another version of Okami, so I never completed it. Oh, no wait, I did actually buy it a few years later for the Wii. I got it for like £5, but the motion controls felt like hell on earth, so I didn't play it for more than 30 minutes. I'll be reviewing the Switch version of the game, as I really wanted to use the touchscreen controls for the brush techniques. So let's have a look and see if this game holds up today. Okami was originally made by Clover Studios, a very unique studio with Capcom as their publisher. They were tasked with creating new franchises for the current consoles at the time. They worked on Beautiful Joe for the GameCube in 2004, before moving on to Okami for the PS2. Okami came out first in Japan on April 20th, 2006. It was then released in North America on the 19th of September the same year. It came to Europe on the 9th of February 2007, and finally Australia on the 14th of February 2007. Clover Studio wouldn't last long after Okami's release though. It was actually closed down only a few months later, due to poor sales of Okami and very poor sales of their next game, God Hand, which released only shortly after. Clover Studios was on with a hit with Okami though. It scored over 8s and 9s across most review sites when it came out. It just never seemed to take off despite its good review scores. The game has had even more staggered releases since Clover was shut down, releasing on the Nintendo Wii a year later in June 2008. We then got some HD editions on the PlayStation 3 in October 2012. We got some more HD editions later, the PS4, Xbox One and Windows PC in December of 2017. The last one being for the Nintendo Switch on the 9th of August 2018. All of these being ported by different studios and all published by Capcom. My god, I think I know where Todd Howard gets his ideas from now. No, Todd, no. I don't want to buy it again. I already bought it for the 360 and my PS4. I've bought it twice. You have my money. Are you happy now? I think he's gone. Although it didn't make a major impact back in 2006, the game was refused to fade away and has gone on to become a cult classic. The team that worked on Okami would actually come back to life later as Platinum Games as of the 1st of October 2007. The studio's made some incredible games, such as the Bayonetta series, Vanquish, and more recently, Nier Automata. The sad news is that there's no sign of a sequel. The original team no longer hold the license for Okami, and due to some poor relations with Capcom, it doesn't look like that will change anytime soon. And before you point it out in the comments, no, I don't count the DS game as a sequel. I count it more as a spin-off. Well, at least we've got the original Okami to play. All 7 versions of it. Just a message going forward, I'm going to try my best to pronounce all of these Japanese names, but I may butcher them and I apologise if I offend anyone. To cut a long story short, Okami is loosely based on some Japanese myths and legends of a sun god called Amaterasu. In the game, we see the legend of how a wolf helped a mighty warrior kill the evil beast Orochi 100 years ago. They then locked Orochi away with a sword that killed him in a shrine. After the above is explained, we see an unknown man release Orochi, not believing the legends of 100 years ago. Orochi is then released once more and tries to reclaim the land. The story is interesting and it does show you a window into Japanese culture with the way these legends are treated and presented. For me, I feel as though it could have been told in a more interesting way. We don't learn any of this through gameplay or by searching for information ourselves. We're just given lengthy cutscenes and dialogue between the characters, which can go on way too long. For example, if you look here, all I've done is watch the opening cutscene and run around for around 30 seconds. It takes this long from starting the game just to begin actually playing it. You do have the option to skip these if you want to, but the game's lore is important to the story and you don't get it anywhere else. Also, very important, game progression is told through these conversations, like where to go or what to do next, so if it's your first time playing through, it's worth paying attention. During conversations, some of the humour from Issue can come through as just rude or slightly perverted nowadays. I think it may be a cultural difference as well as an ageing one. It's nothing too garish or offensive at all. It's just something you read through and you're like, yep, you can't say that anymore. It's not a negative, it's just something to get used to. You do really get some good looking visuals while these stories are being told, with hand-drawn illustrations as well as some light-hearted jokes to give the game its own identity. Something that does take away from the character interaction is the sound people make when they talk. It's loud, high-pitched and grating. It sounds like the gibberish talk from The Sims or Banjo-Kazooie. It's annoying as if we're going to have to sit through these long conversations, it could have at least been voice acted, or even better, silent. In reality, it's not anything drastically bad, and you do have the option to turn it down in the options menu. It's just not aged well as other aspects of the game. The pacing comes with similar trade-offs though. Although it is very interesting, it just gives you it in massive data dumps. You may complete a story task and then have a 5-minute conversation with an NPC as they explain what you need to do next and explain the legend of the demon you'll need to fight. It feels like it could have been spaced out better, just giving each story beat more room to breathe. All in all, I did like the story, it just feels like a product of its time. It has a lot of funny moments throughout, which is a good incentive to keep you reading through all those conversations. It's a classic hero story, it doesn't break the mould, but it has a few twists to keep it interesting. The game is an action and adventure game, but also has open areas to explore and dungeons to go through and solve. A lot of people describe this game as Dog Zelda. No, not that Dog Zelda, this Dog Zelda. The Dog Zelda before Dog Zelda existed. Instead of using different equipment to solve puzzles or defeat enemies, Amaterasu has a celestial brush. She uses this to paint certain shapes and lines on the screen to interact with the in-game world. At any point, you can hold down the L2 or R2 button and make the screen look like a scroll. You can then draw a line to represent a mighty slash from a sword, or draw a bomb that can hurt enemies or blow up walls. There are around 12 different brush techniques you can learn, all with different effects and uses. This was the main reason I want to play on the Switch, as you can use your finger to draw on the touchscreen. The touchscreen worked great for this as well. All the brush techniques were easier to draw with my finger and faster than using a controller. It felt like a truly unique experience, and it's the reason I would recommend this version over any other. The puzzles in the dungeons and around the open world are clever and do still hold up today. I was pleasantly surprised at how well they were laid out, and liked how they really took advantage of the brush techniques and the mechanics the game had. I don't think they get as complex as the Zelda series, but they do a good job of making the player feel engaged, while still giving them that aha moment when solving a puzzle. However, you may need to scan over a guide occasionally in the open world part of the game. To help prevent you from getting stuck, I can give you a few bits of advice. 1. Explore the world you're in to see if there's any brush techniques to solve a puzzle around you. This may sound easy, but look out for broken items you can fix with your brush or far off flowers you can draw a line to. Number 2. Remember to look in the menu at your brush techniques, as they can give you extra information on what you can do with all of them. You may learn something new you were unaware of before. 3. Talk to every NPC you can see. They can give you extra hints on what to do next, and when talking to an NPC, any important information is often shown in red text, letting you know to pay attention to what is being said. On your world map, you may also see a red circle, which should indicate where you need to be. Number 4. Explore any areas you haven't been to yet. You may reach an area which you can't progress further until you have unlocked a new ability. If you're still lost, I'd just look up a quick guide. Normally I'd read the first 2 lines of the guide and be like, wait, I know exactly what to do now, I don't need to read anymore. It's just irritating the game isn't as clear as it could be. I want to point out though, this only happened 3, maybe 4 times throughout the entire game, so it's just a small issue, but one to be aware of. While exploring, you'll see these large scrolls just roaming around the open world. These are enemies, and once touched you'll enter a small dome and begin a fight. They start off simple, as the first few enemies can be beaten just by using a claw attack. As you progress, you'll meet new enemies, and you'll need to use specific brush techniques to take them down. You have limited ink, but it'll always be refilling slowly over time. You'll feel empowered enough to use it when required, but the trade-off being that if you use up all your ink, you'll have to wait for 3 pots to fill back up before being able to use any other brush technique. I would find this easy during normal fights, as the enemy would normally only require you hit them with a certain brush technique once or twice. But harder during boss fights, and ink management is something you're going to need to keep an eye on. This is because there'd only be one way of making a boss vulnerable, so it involved you spamming that one brush technique until you were able to attack. The bosses were always fun to play against, but once you found the solution, there wasn't really much more to figure out. The enemies and bosses would always have a pattern you could learn and use this to take them down. Again, it would draw on that puzzle aspect of the game and make you feel satisfied for finding and exploiting that enemy's weakness. At the end of every fight, you'll be given a score based on the time it took you to defeat the enemy and how much damage you took during the fight. This ends in some money, which can be used to spend on items, new weapons, or fighting abilities from dojos. Personally, I'd recommend you save it for the new fighting abilities, as they come in handy a lot during the game. You'll also have the ability to slash defeated foes. Once enemies have been defeated, you'll see them hover in the air with a faded pink circle around them. If you slash them during this, you'll receive a demon fan. Do this as much as possible, as they come in handy later in the game, trust me. Apart from the main story, we had a lot of side missions to complete. Most optional, and most with very good rewards for doing so. The rewards would range from new weapons to special relics, pieces of heart like the Zelda series, or extra boss fights, which when completed would upgrade one of your brush techniques. Because of this, it's really easy to recommend you do go out and explore, rather than just sticking to the main story missions. If I had to make any complaints about the gameplay or controls, it would just be that the camera's not fantastic and the game itself goes on for say 5 to 8 hours longer than you'd expect it to, but it's fun where it counts, and I really enjoyed the gameplay loop of puzzle, exploration and battle. So a lot of people compliment this game's presentation and sound, and I'm not going to disagree, it looks beautiful. The art style allows it to age really well, and it also sounds very distinct, letting people know what kind of game they're playing right from the title screen. A lot of developers struggle to give their game a strong identity just for its presentation, and rely on other aspects of the game to help push that narrative as the game goes on. If you just looked at the game, or if you just heard the game, you'd get the same conclusion. Ancient Japan, and that's impressive. To go back to the graphics, a lot of people refer to it as a brush stroke style, but there is slight variation of cell shading, and they really do pop in the HD remaster with vibrant colours and artistic backgrounds in the distance. The sound just fits perfectly with the world we play in. They complement each other brilliantly, rather than one overpowering the other. They've gone for a cartoony style as well, which fits with its slapstick humour and charm the game offers, compared to using a more realistic style. The animals you see throughout do serve a small gameplay mechanic, but mostly just add to the game's character and charm with the little cutscenes you get when feeding them. I also think it presents the puzzles well. When looking over what I needed to do, I always felt like I was given enough information to at least know what I could interact with to solve the puzzle, whereas the presentation in the open world, as we have already said, sometimes hinders your progression. A few times in the game you actually get this huge arrow that directs you where to go. It only happened a few times, and I'm guessing during testing people really did get stuck, so added it as a safeguard to stop players getting lost. But it would have been nice to have this as an option throughout the game, as you have no say as to when it appears and for what missions. Although it looks very out of place compared to everything else in the game, so it may have been added in quite late in development. The cutscenes in this game are great as well. They looked very well animated, and I always understood the message they were trying to get across. Of course, Issue would talk right after or during them to let you know what was going on, but it was more that he was just repeating exactly what we'd seen more than anything else. I wonder where they got that idea from.
Hey, listen!
The last thing I want to talk about in this section is the game's overall tone. They start off with the beginning of the end of the world, but pretty quickly they cut the tension with a joke between Issue and Sakuya only a few moments later. The game does this so when you're just about to fight a boss, you have a good reason to do so. They may have been attacking some villagers or holding a doggo hostage, but the in-between parts, it allows you to just enjoy the rest of the game and lowers the game's urgency. It perfectly sets that tone to make you not feel bad about spending a few hours exploring or taking up side quests, but when you're entering an important story point, uses those cutscenes and NPC conversations to let you know what's at stake and why you're there in the first place. I still think it could have been done better with more emphasis on environmental storytelling or the ability to learn more with optional side quests or collectibles, but it gets the job done. The characters in this game are all fun to interact with and all have distinct personalities. Ishu is a wandering artist with a self-righteous attitude. Sasuno is a warrior who tries to escape his almighty heritage, as long as nobody notices. And Amaterasu? I'm getting so confused, guys. Amaterissa? I don't know. It's an almighty god with a strong will to help people, but she gives in to temptations of a wolf form, like wagging her tail when she's excited or growling at things she doesn't like. These three are the ones we see and spend the most time with on our journey. All three go through a journey of self-discovery and become the heroes they were born to be. Of course, the evil beast Orochi is a prominent figure, but he's just sort of the bad guy with no more progression or growth throughout the game. And then we have Waka, a mysterious self-proclaimed prophet. We do see him a good few times throughout the game, but his motives are unclear. It's not the most original story arc, but it fits the game's narrative message, and although there weren't many major twists throughout the game, I felt it ended well. Any of the NPCs that gave you side quests also had similar smaller story arcs. Once you'd complete the quest, either a location would change, we'd get more NPCs in an area, or we'd get additional quests unlocked as a result. It was nice to see that we could find a quest, solve it, and visibly see our efforts being rewarded, outside of a new weapon or money. So do I think this game is worth playing today? Yes, but there are a few caveats to this. The game takes a little time to get going, there are a lot of cutscenes throughout, it can sometimes struggle to let you know where to go or what to do next, and it may be a little longer than you're expecting. If you're happy with this though, you're going to be welcomed by a graphically beautiful looking game, a soundtrack that takes you straight to the middle of ancient Japan, an interesting assortment of brush techniques, and a quirky story. In all, I think the game holds up great, and if you're a fan of the Zelda series, it's definitely worth playing. I can't say I'd absolutely recommend one version of the game over the other, but I would advise you stay away from the Wii version. Let's just say life is too short for that kind of jank. I loved this game as a kid, and I'm glad I came back to play it through fully, even if it was a decade later. Hi everyone, thank you so much for watching, and be sure to check out the other links below with some other reviews I've already done. If you liked the review, please hit that like button and subscribe button for more videos from me in the future. If you agreed or disagreed, please let me know in the comments as well. I did have some nostalgia for this game, but I've tried to ignore it as much as possible when writing this review, so I'll be interested in knowing what you guys think of it if you've already played it. With that said though, thank you again so much for watching, and I will catch you in the next one.